Hello there, and here I am once again, the great Alex Treat. I deserve all your praise and adoration. Bringing you a live email via recording, and with the help of my dear friend Joe, the irreplaceable Joe. So hopefully, that'll go well. Nothing will be bad. But I don't know if he's editing this as in depth before. I think he's just adding more sound effects because I asked him to. What? So if I mess up, just give me some grace. But anyway, to begin, I shall start, which makes sense. I awakened to my dark room, and I use one hand to rub my eye, and the other to clumsily attempt to try and turn off my alarm. I squint as I look at the time. Why did the test have to be in Denver? I lay there a few more minutes before reminding myself that ACT stands for ACT. And by stands for, I mean literally spells ACT. It does not stand for it at all. And that acting usually involves doing something, which I currently was not. So, I got up and decided to act like I'd gotten enough sleep. 20 minutes later, I sat down in my car and turned the ignition. 20 minutes later, I was driving. 20 minutes after that, I was still driving. And 20 minutes after that, I was still driving. But then I parked, and I was not driving, which was a nice change. I then exited my vehicle and walked to the front door of the testing center, which, to describe it as janky, would be a euphemism. I then opened the door and hopped in line before I was directed to wait in the other line, so I took one step to my right. Time elapsed until I was face to face with a child. She couldn't have been more than 14. Tasked with deciding if I was a healthy human being, or if I would facilitate the spread of the thing I need not mention. She looked up at me. What's your name? Alex Treat, as in trick or treat. Have you been in contact with any known or suspected case of COVID in the last 2 weeks? No. Have you used any fever-reducing medication in the last 24 hours, such as aspirin, ibuprofen, or death? No. Have you had a fever, chills, felt lightheaded, coughed, felt dizzy, had a rash, sprained your ankle, had back pain, felt mildly uncomfortable, sneezed, stepped on something pokey, burnt your tongue, or breathed in the last 72 hours? I hesitate for a moment, and the child looks over her glasses at me. Could you repeat that last one for me? Or breathed within the last 72 hours. Oh no, of course not. Very well, please step in the next line. I take one step to the left. I wait in line for another 5 minutes. Ah, Mr. Treat, it's a treat to have you. Haha, I never heard that one before. 5 minutes later, I find myself in the corner of a janky kitchen, surrounded by females. Donuts sit before me in a closed box, but they are guarded by the inescapable gaze of the female other and the impregnable fornication of social awkwardness. Amidst the dead silence, I look at the donuts longingly. After a minute of uncomfortable silence, one of the females cracks and asks, So, has anyone taken the ACT before? 3 minutes of strained conversation then occurs as the females try to battle back the looming awkward silence with small talk and mirthless laughs until they eventually lose and silence overtakes once again. I stare at the donuts. Another 2 minutes after that, the same female that couldn't take it before asks, So, what's everyone doing for summer break? Once again, this valiant attempt elicits about 3 minutes of clearly forced conversation before it all withers and dies. In the remaining time, I revel in the awkwardness they all clearly feel and smile as I watch them flounder. After a while, we are summoned to the classroom, wherein the lights are falling off the ceiling, and the carpet could be aptly described as the garbs of numerous homeless people sewn into a patchwork quilt and laid upon the floor. I sit down in my chair and try not to focus on the skinny dude in baggy jeans with jet white hair and with chains draping out of his pocket. The proctor walks in and monotonously reads the instructions assigned to her. She then hands out the test and tells us only to fill out the preliminary information sheet necessary for enabling ourselves to receive our test scores. I obey. She then starts the test, and I spend the next hour answering questions about sponge-toed mountain goats, and why it's a tragedy that lighthouses are automated these days. I then spend the next hour doing math at a very rapid pace, and forgetting that 66 divided by 5 is not 33, and really wanting to cheat and change my answer because, that's stupid. But I didn't, because morals. I then spend the next half an hour noting that sentence structure, she whom is the director, preposterously prefers jazz, is stupid. And finally, as my brain cells died, I spent the next 30 minutes discovering what happens if you put metal in boiling water. Spoiler, it gets hot. Then there was the surprise section. Now, skinny dude obviously was eager to leave, so he told the proctor we didn't have to do it, because it was just a survey. And the proctor mostly believed him, but called the man in charge just to make sure. And the man in charge also knew nothing, and believed skinny dude. And it was at that point that we decided it was a survey, but we should take it anyway, just to be safe. And they were right, it was a survey. A survey of how much information you could derive about rising water levels from an informational paragraph. And so upon completing the in no way optional, but thought optional, final portion of the test, the proctor told us to go home. However, before people walked to the door, I asked her if she would like us to fill out the other half of the preliminary information sheet that is necessary for the test to be accepted and for us to get our scores. She said yes, so I did that. And then I left. But as I did, I cast one last glance toward the beloved donuts for whom I so eagerly longed, only to discover they had been unfaithful, allowing themselves to be eaten by another. So yeah, that was my janky ACT test-taking experience. And I was surprised this place even got, certified to host testing, because they clearly had no idea what they were doing. But at least that's all over with. As for life, I've been practicing not dying, and so far I'm doing really well. I've nearly reached a 20-year streak, so yeah. I know, I deserve all your praise. After writing my last life email, I didn't do much before heading to bed, other than doing a bit of Bible reading. The following morning, I thoroughly wasted before going to D&D and playing Catan at Neo's house. And, we kind of got destroyed, me and Neo. We were on a team in Catan, and we lost really bad. We don't talk about that. Next day, I had work, and also Jake texted me to let me know he had made his engagement with Charity official, which, of course, everyone could see from 10,000 miles away, but it was still mildly exciting. I then played ping pong over the Myers for a while before heading over to Animen, where me and Joe debated if cups exist, for about a solid 3 hours. And I must say, I think that's topped the list of the most pointless philosophical discussions I've had in some time. Now, not, mind you, because asking if cups exist is a stupid question. Clearly it's a very interesting one. But rather, because it took me and Joe 3 hours to realize we actually agreed the whole time, and we were just emphasizing different things and being really stubborn. Hey! So yeah, that was interesting, but still a good time. The next day, I did school, and the amount of homework I get routinely is now effectively doubled, so yay. I also talked with Alan and Matt about the Apostolic Church for ages, which is actually, pretty disappointing because, they didn't have really good reasons for not being Orthodox or Catholic. The Catholics only got, a 2.4 strikes, and the Orthodox got, 1.9, so pretty pathetic if you ask me, because you need at least 3 strikes to be out. And then I played some, VR, and played this, puzzle game called I Expect You to Die, and I got the super hot score, which is really, really good, but you can't see it because you can't see the picture, so it's 159,000, which is high, okay? Just so you know, I was awesome. But unfortunately, I did not manage to beat my high score, so oh well. After that, I partook in Ratio Christi, which was a game night, and frankly, a pretty lame Ratio Christi. There were a lot of new people, and everyone was so into their games, there wasn't really any good conversation. Plus, as a minor fact, I got destroyed in Catan, but I assure you, that's not why I rated the Ratio Christi as lame. Had nothing to do with it. The following morning, I woke up early for in-person school, which I did, in a tired manner, before I went home to do homework, in a tired manner. And then I binged a bit of anime, in a tired manner, and then I went to youth group, in a tired manner. And finally went to sleep, which relieved my tired manner. Then, upon no longer being sleep deprived, I went to in-person school once more, and barely made in time for my online calculus-based physics class, because I totally forgot it existed. After that, I have a bit of a conversation with Aunt Amber, who was staying at our house in California for a bit, which was good. The following day, I had homework, I do believe, and as I was doing such, I got this call from Loveland, Colorado. Now, I know people in Loveland, so I was considering picking it up, but I kind of have this policy to not answer numbers that aren't in my contacts, which has saved me a bazillion sales calls, so far it's been pretty good. So I let it ring. However, the same never called back about a dozen math problems later, so I decided it would be best to pick it up. So I did, and it turned out it was this army salesman dude trying to get me to join. So I politely, tried to dismiss him by saying I was interested in joining the army, but he kept pressing, and so before I knew it, I told him I was a pacifist. Now, I know that doesn't seem very eventful, and it's not, but you see, the issue is I'm not a pacifist. In other words, I lied. And quite frankly, I was quite surprised I lied. Of course, my reasoning process was pretty clear. Tell him you're a pacifist and they'll have to leave you alone because there's no way you're getting a pacifist to join the army. But I was just surprised that I'd done so. Personally, I consider myself a really honest person, but thinking back to this, this isn't the first time I, instinctively lied. For instance, one time a member of our D&D group was inviting another member of our D&D group over to her place to watch anime with her, and I was like, oh, no, don't do that, and I blurted out my internal dialogue, at which point she asked me if I was making an insinuation against her character, which I 100% was. But I lied and said that animes are not worth watching twice in a row, and that's why you shouldn't go over to her place. So besides being slightly concerning, such occasions have come to make me ponder the nature of lying. I mean, first of all, it's not like I premeditated either of those particular cases. I just said them, and I wonder what degree of culpability I can have for doing such. Also, second, despite the fact that such actions, were ones I wouldn't have perpetrated had I given it half a second to think, does that mean it's morally wrong? I mean, it would have been better for me to say and admit to D&D girl that, yeah, I actually do think your character is sketchy. That seems like a poor choice of words or action to engage in. And third, when I did say the lie, I did it really smoothly. I didn't miss a beat. I was able to calculate exactly how to respond in the context of the conversation in half a second. Her response brought to my attention that I had a problem on my hands that I need to fix, and the time I was expected to give a response. Nevertheless, if you've ever played Werewolf, or Mafia, or Among Us, or any other game in which lying is expected of me, you will know when I'm consciously trying to lie, I am really bad at it. Abysmal beyond all belief. So why is there this stark incongruity between my abilities at these two different times? Is it like perhaps because instinctively lying uses a different part of your brain than consciously doing so? Or is it perhaps because, in this case, I instinctually lied, I actually believed it to be true until, shortly after I recognized that I had uttered a falsehood, thus explaining how it's ever played off so smoothly. So, I'm not really, entirely sure where my particular actions fall in that category. And finally, it's traditionally argued that lies are morally wrong because they hinder the other's pursuit of the truth, which is an objective good, hence why lies which are not harmful, but even beneficial, are considered wrong. But if that's the case, then deceptions would be equally wrong. But most of us don't want to say that. E.g., we want to say that if you flat out say, I like pineapple pizza, it's worse than grabbing 2 pieces of pineapple pizza and throwing away the pineapple when no one's looking, despite the fact that, both would lead to the conclusion that he likes pineapple pizza, which of course is clearly false because no one could possibly like pineapple pizza. It's horrible. So, on that occasion, I did lie, and it was not extremely momentous in and of itself, but it did reveal a disturbing, but perhaps benign, condition in my psyche, which warrants more investigation and thought. So, that was impactful, oddly. But anyway, after that debacle, I proceeded to beat a VR game, which is called I Expect You to Die, which I may have had to look up the puzzles at 2 points, but we don't talk about that. And then I played soccer with the usual group, did a bit of reading upon getting home, and then watched some anime to round out the night. Next morning, I read the Bible for a few hours before trying to catch up on my book reading. I've been reading the Bible chronologically for a while, but I'm a week behind, and I've been so for the last 2 months, so I'm, not the most punctual at this point in time. After that, some people came over for brunch, which I was not informed of. They just showed up, and I was like, oh, look at that, people. And Morgan and Amber were there, so that was kind of cool. And the conversation was decent. The guy I mostly talked to was really just playing the part of the skeptic. He was just challenging positions, and when I challenged him back, he just kind of said, I don't know. But it was some good conversation that came out of it, so it was mostly a win. However, it wasn't until Sydney texted me that I realized I would 100% forgotten about D&D and was already 15 minutes late. So I had to leave quite abruptly and race over there. D&D that session was actually pretty good. I pulled quite a few Clutch the Wizard Brigbane moves, so it was pretty cool. And my character's Wizard, just in case you didn't know that. It's already, common knowledge, I thought, but maybe not. I also teamed up with John against Neo and Sydney in a game of Small World, and we got destroyed. Yeah. My performance was really poor. I'm not going to lie. But we're not going to talk about it either because I don't like losing. So after that, me and Neo tackled dishes, and then Sydney and I almost beat the tank game. You know, the Wii tank game? Yeah, that one. Seriously, we got 2 levels away. Now, I know the game with the imposing title, The Wii Tank Game, may not seem difficult, but I assure you, it is anything but easy. And I have sworn a solemn oath that one day I will defeat that game. Someday. It will happen. I promise you. It's going to happen. The following Monday, I did school and went to work. And then I did homework and went to the Myers, where me and Jake got in a pretty good conversation before Caleb and I headed over to anime, which was good. Tuesday, I intentionally slept in. But I wouldn't say it was a mistake, because I made a cost-benefit analysis, a calculus of the situation, in which case I decided it was more worthy that I have full brain functioning than, get an attendance point in English and, be counted present, because who really cares? So I do think I made the right decision there, but it was still kind of a sad thing, because hopefully if I'd, planned my schedule better, I wouldn't have had to sleep in, because I would have just not stayed up too late. But I didn't do that. But anyway, after I did that, I then did a ton of homework, and I actually enjoyed doing my calculus homework, calculus-based physics particularly, which was odd. And I know, I'm kind of a freak, but, whatever. I did enjoy it. After getting that done, I did some Bible reading before heading over to Rashford Christie, where we listened to a guy from the Church of Science talk about, he didn't really talk about Church of Science, he really talked about his own personal beliefs, which entailed, but we're not limited to, if you're homesick, pray about it. God will ensure you'll never be homesick again. God will always heal you if you have enough faith. Therefore, the only reason people of the Church of Science die is they don't have enough faith. When God in Genesis gave us dominion over, I quote, creeping things, God also meant by that we have dominion over creepy things. And stuff like having your knee turned sideways is creepy. Therefore, you have dominion over it. Yeah, he actually argued that. I'm not kidding. Genesis 1 and 2 talk about 2 different creation narratives by 2 different gods. But no, he's not a dualist. Somehow. And finally, matter is real, but not real. So when you die, but don't die, you could go to hell, which isn't hell forever, or maybe just a little bit. I'm not quite sure. Basically, his views were difficult to parse out, if I can say that simply. So yeah, I want to let you all know I am now a Christian Scientist. Yeah, no way, actually. There's no way I do that. But I will say this was never less beneficial, because prior to this talk, when filling out college applications, I may or may not have checked the Christian Science box, because my thought went like this. I'm a Christian. I like science. So Christian Science. Yeah, apparently they mean very different things. Who would have thunk? But yeah, we listened to that talk, which was, all of us agreed pretty stupid, and then we collectively pointed our fingers and laughed in the Christian Science's direction for the next 2 hours or so, which was surprisingly enjoyable. I now understand why making fun of other people is fun. The following day was quite snowy, so upon my drive to school, I amply drifted upon the streets, which is like, mostly safe, 10% at least. I then got home and took dad drifting, which I know may sound like I'm obsessed with drifting at this point, but it's true, so moving on. I then had work, which was normal, and I finished watching Avatar, which was decent, but, I think people had it up a bit too much. After doing that, I went to a youth group in which me and Ben destroyed everyone in spike ball. We make a really good team, by the way. Just recently, me and Benj actually both played everyone left-handed, and we beat Joe and Sam like twice. Not bragging at all. Upon arriving home, I watched a bit more of anime before reading a book on typology, but I must say it was more like mystical psychoanalysis typology, so I mostly learned what not to believe through the book, which is kind of sad. I then did school, spent like an entire day doing reading and homework classes, and it took me ages to get through a recording of me trying to speak that godforsaken language of Spanish, because every single time I would just make some little mistake and have to start all over again, because you get yourself a ton of points if you make a mistake. So that was a huge pain. However, I did finally finish homework at like 5 in the afternoon, and then I introduced Mom and Grace to an anime called Shield Hero, and we all watched that together. I also managed to get Ben involved, actually, and he has now, too, been infected by the rampant virus of anime. The power. So, after that, I worked on making a Spotify playlist of anime intros I liked. Yes, I know that sounds a bit obsessive, but I'm sane, I assure you. And the next morning, I drove out to Loveland to help a family move, which my dad knows. They're called the Hobsons, and they ended up paying me like $30 an hour, so definitely can't complain. I then took Grace to the Macy's, and I went to pick up Ben for soccer, so I did that. And then we drove to soccer and proceeded to play, which all went well. And then upon arriving home, I read more of the aforementioned psychology book and watched some anime. Saturday morning, I read some of the Bible and watched some more anime before playing Airsoft for 5 hours. And I would show you a pic, but you can't see it because lol images aren't sound. And that was pretty great. We did actually do pretty well, especially me. I had gotten this one like really high point, and I was just nailing them for like a solid 30 minutes. It was absolutely beautiful. But this one guy, Nate, got a new gun, which was actually really good, so there were points at which we got kind of destroyed. However, after me and Ben finished Airsoft, we were pretty exhausted, so we just grabbed some Simrils at Burns and headed home. And then out of character, I just went to sleep at 7. Like, who goes to sleep at 7? Apparently me. Because I was literally that tired. But unfortunately, I only ended up sleeping till 9, so I woke up and then just sat in bed thinking, for I kid you not, a solid 4.5 hours. It was really unfortunate, because I could not get myself to go back to sleep. But I did manage to think of some cool stuff, so, maybe it's a perk. But anyway, after that, I went till 1:30 in the morning, where I got myself to read a book, and then finally got to sleep, which was good. The following morning, I navigated the extreme social awkwardness of Ben's childhood friend coming over, along with his family, and after everyone literally sat around just staring at their phones for I kid you not, 30 minutes, I finally stepped up and braved the social awkwardness, and coerced everyone to do Nerf wars and Grownies, which no one really enjoyed, but at least they got them talking again. So, I feel like I did my job well. I brushed off my shoulder. After that, I went to D&D, where my wizard had an uber fail session, where basically not a single one of my spells hit, which was super sad. And then we did Bible study. Oh, actually, no, I think we skipped Bible study that day. Yeah, we did. And we just played games. And then we did dishes. The next morning, I had school, which was quite productive. I did work, some Bible reading, did anime, and debated if pirating stuff was wrong. And just in case you're holding your breath out there, the decided answer is yes. Yes, pirating stuff is wrong. Sad, but true. Tuesday, I had mucho school. I decided that instead of watching anime while I ate, I would watch some YouTube videos, except at dinner. I'd still watch anime then, about random things that I should know. For instance, what's the best malware software to install on your computer, or what is the best browser, or whatever. And then I read some more of that psychology book, watched some anime, and participated in some pretty good Ratio Christie conversations. Oh, at this point, I've got Joe and Caleb coming along pretty consistently, plus Morgan, which usually shows up. So I've effectively doubled Ratio Christie in size. Yes, I know. I'm pretty awesome. Wednesday, I had more school, and I finally got my paycheck, which was super neat because I was 100% broke. I then did homework, went to youth group, and upon returning home, watched some anime. The following day, I had a math test, which I thought I aced, but apparently only got a 92 on, which is really sad. This is apparently a consistent thing. I overestimate how awesome I did, which is probably not a healthy trait. It's better to underestimate, I suppose, but oh well. I guess a 92 is not horrible. I then did homework and read the Bible before going to an in-person calculus-based physics lab, which, again, was surprisingly enjoyable. Because, you see, it was during this lab that my aforementioned physics homeworks and my past knowledge of calculus made me realize a marvelous truth. Math is actually useful. And I was able to actually use calculus for something other than something just getting good grades, because I could actually, we shot this little metal ball, and I was able to get to go exactly where I wanted to with math. And I was like, whoa, math works in, real life. And of course I knew that, but it was just a revelation moment in my experiences. I don't know. It was cool. And then upon returning home, I did some more reading before me and my family watched an anime marathon into the wee hours of the night. Friday, I did homework before going to the Macy's with Grace to drop her off. However, I had this weird time window where it wasn't worth driving all the way home, so I ended up just kind of camping in my car, listening to instrumental music in the Walmart parking lot for a while and eating a Subway sandwich. And it was the first time I just sat. I guess not in silence, but in a state of like thoughtless waiting, just listening. And it was the first time I just sat like that in really quite a long time, so, without anywhere to be and nothing on my mind. It was just actually pretty relaxing. So I'm inclined to think that if I could do that like once a week, I might be significantly better off for it. I don't know. You should try it. But yeah, I did that and then had to run to pick up Benj, and he and I went to soccer, which was good and fun. And upon arriving home, I finished the typology book, which I'm really glad because I think it was a pain. And I finished the anime series I was on before talking to Jordan for about an hour and a half, catching up on his life. And then doing another anime marathon. Well, it was part 2, really. It was the same anime. With the family until the wee hours of the night, which was enjoyable. It was a cool way to, family bond. Saturday morning, I woke up early for my ACT, which has already been depicted in quite some detail, so I will not recount that. And upon arriving home, my dead brain worked on a Life of Email, this particular Life of Email, and finished the anime me and my family were watching, which, also took a while. So then I slept again. The next day, I did Bible reading, fixed my rollerblades, and watched some anime before going to Neo's and having a good D&D session where we played, I think we met a merchant. Yeah, it was mostly just merchants, but he was a cool merchant. He played the merchant very well. After that, we played Bang and Small World until like 1:30 in the morning. So again, my sleep schedule was off put. Monday, I did school with an overcooked brain because aforementioned lack of sleep. Went to work, did some homework before watching this good anime called Steins Gate, which Joe showed me, and it's really good. Highly recommend. Probably depends on who's listening, but anyway, yes. I then went to Animen with the group, and Jake actually attended, which was cool, because he came and talked, and he didn't watch the anime, but he stuck around, and we got to have some conversations with him. That was good. And Ben also came, but he ended up deciding it was the worst, because the particular anime we're watching about is right now about volleyball, which is, frankly, yes, boring. But, it's okay. I didn't ever say I loved it, but it's not the worst. I then did school Tuesday, watched some more Steins Gate, hung with Mom, and then went out for coffee. And then, after doing a bit more Steins Gate, because, that show really got me hooked, I headed to Ratio Christie and engaged in spontaneous charity. See, ever since I talked to Alan a while back, I think it was like 6 months ago, I've been putting aside roughly 50% of my income for virtues purposes. And at Ratio Christie, we were talking about how best to give, and Morgan turned it into a hey Alex, why are you waiting to give, huh? Things, which I responded, I'm waiting to find the best allocation of my resources, of course. But then everyone kept pressuring me and was like, don't wait, you should do it now. And so in a moment of triumph, I whipped out my phone and donated $420 to some random charity Caleb knew. So in the moment, my inner dialogue was like, oh, you don't think I'll do it, huh? You think I'm really just scared to let go of my money, and that's why I haven't given it all away, huh? Well, watch this! And I pressed the button. But in hindsight, I realized that the aforementioned inner dialogue wasn't really in accord with the whole spirit of charity. It was more like me proving them wrong. And, I kind of put the whole money aside in the first place for the very reason that I wanted to find the most effective means. In the end, I just donated to a random charity, which is the reason why I held on to it, to not do that. So, afterward, my inner dialogue was more like, oh, oops. But, oh well, I can't change the past, whatever. So, next morning, I unintentionally slept in and missed Spanish class and math class. That's what happens when you unintentionally sleep in. And I then woke up and did work. I also did my homework, went to youth group, and upon arriving home, talked with William, which was actually really good. I missed that kid. I then did homework and debated Alan through Discord about teleology. It's really sad. We have a dark turn in the teleology history, where teleology seems less plausible now, which is quite tragic, because I really do like it. Finally, yesterday, I had more school, as per usual. I took Grace to school, and then went to work, and then I went to my physics lab, which was at least mediocrely stressful because the equipment wouldn't work, and we ran out of time, but oh well. Upon returning home, I finished Steins Gate. The end was a bit disappointing, I must say. And then I finally spent 2 hours trying to systematically find all the papers concerning the validity of the MBTI, only to discover that that's stupid hard to do, and my methods were, really ineffective. So, yeah, I failed. But yeah, that brings me to the present, where I've spent the vast majority of the morning typing this live email, and so, there you are. Oh, okay, wait, one other thing. I also have a video of me doing awesomeness in Beat Saber, which I am really cool, and you're going to be like, wow, I'm marvelous. Except, they may have sped it up or something, because it seems faster than it does look on the screen. It could just be a perspective thing, but I'm pretty confident they sped it up. So maybe I'm not as cool as looking in the video, but just saying, you should check it out, just so you can witness my opposites at some point in time. But yeah, that's all I have to say, and thank you for listening to this installment of Alex's Next Life Update Email.
I guess the the only thing I can do is learn from it and trust that